At the center of the universe, at the border between the light and the dark, stands Castle Grayskull. For countless ages, the heroes of Grayskull have defended the universe against the forces of evil. Walk through the Hall of Living Pictures and learn the history and mystery of the Masters of the Universe. Dive deep into the mythology of Eternia, Etheria, and more. For those who know the stories of Grayskull will come the power to be supreme, the power to be all-knowing, the power to be Legends of Grayskull.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We wanted to interrupt the show here with a special segment. I'm given the opportunity today to sit down with a wonderful fan of the property, and he's done amazing work on it for all the way back to 2000X. He's done his own fan stuff for years in the Homecoming comic. And he's been a presence online ever since I've been a part of the fandom, at least. I'm sure well before that. I'm joined today by the wonderful artist, toy designer, fan extraordinaire, Emiliano Santalucia. Emiliano, how you doing today?
Hi everybody. Hi Matt. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, and my apologies if I butchered your name too poorly there.
No, it was pretty good.
So Emiliano, I gave them a little taste of what you've done over the years, but why don't you go ahead and tell us about some of your notable contributions to the property? Maybe what led you to become a He-Man fan? I mean, what is it that's captivated you for all these years?
Well, if we want to go that far back, I started being a He-Man fan in 1983 when He-Man arrived in Italy. We got it a year later. So, I mean, I've been a fan since day one. I just saw the ad on a magazine and I was captured. So I tried to analyze what was that have me so attached to it over the years, but I'm not sure. All I know is that it was love at first sight, and it has never gone away since then. And because of that, I kind of pursued a career in comics because I wanted to do He-Man comics. In fact, my school project was this black and white comic that I published on my website in 1998.
Yes.
And it became very popular for some reason. People really liked it. It caught the attention of Val Staples which was trying to get the license to do the official Masters of the Universe comic in 2000, and we worked together to get the license from Mattel, and we did it, and we did the comic that at that time was being released at the same time of the new show, the new toys that were releasing. So we worked in that canon and with that storyline. And that was basically how I became a professional artist. And being involved in the comic got me close in a way to the Four Horsemen. I visited their studio. I talked to them a lot, and I learned a lot about how toys are done. So I thought, why not trying to be a toy designer, which would be more interesting than doing comic book for me, probably. And I tried. I took my portfolio with toy design I did for the Four Horsemen and on my own, showed it in San Diego to my good friend John Warden at Hasbro, is now the lead designer of the Power Ranger brand. And he just hired me like this. He saw the portfolio and hired me. And since, I'm sure it was a lot of luck, and it was a great help from Ogi Pires, which is a huge fan that lot of the whole guard of fans know, because he has been around a lot, and Ogi introduced me um, to John and San Diego. And since it was November 2009, I started working with Hasbro. It's now almost 12 years, and I've become a professional toy designer, and I do design for all major brand for Hasbro. I work on the Transformers movies, and from time to time I do other stuff. I work with Super 7 on their vintage styled figures, managing all the packaging with and bringing back Carol McCarthy, which is one of my proudest moments.
Yeah, that was
And
amazing.
thank you. And and also with more recently with Mondo, where I designed a few of their figures and some more that they're going to reveal later on. And with this little thing which is called the Power and Honor Foundation, which is purely fan based and fan founded, which is basically a non-profit association and organization that collect artwork and archives artwork for posterity, basically. And we published that book. We worked on the Dark Horse art book. We did some portfolios. We brought Mark Taylor in San Diego to meet with the fan, and probably of a whole experience of being a He-Man fan, getting to know Mark and Rebecca and becoming their friends and spending time with them. It's like there is nothing else like that as an He-Man fan. And of course, it went beyond He-Man. It was like a personal connection with these two people that have been so important in my life and the life of many He-Man fans. Well, that's it for now. I keep working on Transformers, and
now, did you ever think back in 1998 when you were putting together Homecoming? Did you ever think like, hey, this is gonna eventually put me in the same room as Mark and Rebecca or anything like that? Did you, or could you feel it as you were making the comic that this is gonna be it?
No, definitely no. Absolutely. I mean, at that time, no one would have believed that Mattel would do anything again with Masters of the Universe, even if I hope, to spark that interest. And in a way, I mean, a small percentage of Homecoming helped in that way because it created a tension between fans. I mean, of course, there was already a community of fans.
Absolutely.
But that comic brought more of them together. It gave the people what I wanted to do was to try to imagine how to move on, how to create new stories. And of course, there were people creating fan art. The first time I went online, I found a lot of fan fiction. I remember all this early fan fiction. From the 90s. But of course,
people were just desperate for new stories. I mean, that's what we were all looking for at that time. We wanted to honor the past and talk about it, but we also wanted something new. And I think your story for the most of us was, it was the first time someone had tried to bridge the gap between New Adventures. I think that was a big part of it for a lot of people. And the way you did it, even though I don't agree with all the choices you made in the story, it was still like, okay, so he's honoring everything that came before. You were one of the first I remember that actually honored New Adventures. Most people were like, okay, I'm just going to write some more about Filmation or DC, the mini comics or whatever. You were the first person I remember actually going like, okay, how do we include all of this that came before? And it was awesome. And I remember sitting there with my dial-up internet, late 90s, waiting for one page to load, read it, oh my god, next page to load. It was an amazing experience.
And now that you made me think about it, it's probably, it was self-therapeutic because, like everybody else, I wasn't really happy when I saw the new adventure on the catalog. I went to a toy shop pretty regularly, and one of the guy in the toy shop used to show me the retailer's catalog. So every January or February, I would go there, and they had the new catalog, and I could see all the new He-Man stuff that was coming out that year.
Right.
So in 88, it was 89 here. I was there, and there was no more Masters of the Universe. So that was a huge disappointment because it was over,
Right.
and there was this new thing, and I tried to embrace it, but deep down I was disappointed and sad, and I didn't really like it. I didn't really like the toy at the beginning. I think the line got better eventually when Mark came back to Mattel.
Yes, you can see them changing it later in the line.
Yeah, exactly. But so when I did Homecoming, I said, well, this stuff exists. I'm not going to ignore something because I don't like it, but more let's find an angle that justify this in the way I see Masters of the Universe. So probably that was what sparked writing that story.
Right. And while we're on New Adventures, right quick, for those of you who don't know, check out our All-Star Trivia, which should have aired by the time I put this up. Towards the end there, we were talking about New Adventures in the Trifusium Crystal, and there was something you wanted to share about that.
Yeah. One of the many questions I failed miserably. I got it half right because we were talking about what can I say it because people have already.
Yep. Okay. The trivia episode will be up before this goes up. So.
Okay. Yeah. We were talking about this crystal that He-Man and the other folks need to retrieve for to help Primus. And I was saying, okay, there is probably a reason why there is this crystal motif going on in New Adventures. It's a guess. I don't really have evidence that there is this link, but when you know what came before New Adventure, it makes perfect sense. Because before settling down on the jet lag cartoon, there were multiple attempts to bring back Masters of the Universe in some way. And there was a couple of draft of a series by Filmation, the Hero 2 stuff, or the He-Man and Masters of Space with the talking power sword. A lot of interesting things. But even before that, or around that time, because the timeline isn't really clear here, Mattel was developing, along with Gary Goddard and Landmark Entertainment, a live-action TV show, which was going to use the TV interactive feature that was later used in Captain Power. Captain Power was probably developed later because this show didn't become a reality. And in some of the designs you can see in the Power and Honor Foundation catalog, you can see that where many of these toys had, you can probably show something there. They had this crystal power cell that you had to attach to many of the toys to make them work. And I think even in the Power Sword, I don't think that piece of artwork is in that book, but maybe it's something that we found later. But you had to put it in the Power Sword too, and to power up some of the vehicles.
There's a blaster here. The blasters
as the power cell.
Yeah.
And interestingly, a prototype for laser power He-Man has this power cell on the back, attached to his backpack, which basically.
You're talking the laser power He-Man from the vintage Masters of the Universe line.
Yes.
Not the New Adventures line.
No.
Okay.
No, yes. So this is the prototype where the armor is half silver with the black and blue H, and he has this green power cell on the top of his backpack. Now, if you consider the timeline, when these toys came out in Europe, um, you know that He-Man was done and gone in US. The line was closed,
Right.
but it was still selling very well in Europe, especially in Italy, Spain, and Germany, where these figures came out. So what I think has happened, but it seems the most logical conclusion is that they were developing these toys for this new series.
Yep.
And they say, well, they're still selling very well here. Let's take this prototype, package it as vintage Masters of the Universe, as regular Masters of the Universe line here, and just sell it as part of the line.
Absolutely.
So we got a toy for a line that never happened, basically.
Yeah, no, and I think that's been the fan speculation for years, especially with Skeletor having the cyborg parts and everything else. It only makes sense that they were, I guess I always just assumed that they were bridging the gap, like they were trying to soften you up. Like if we release these in the red package, then once we release the new stuff, you'll be more like, oh, okay, well I've got the first two figures already, so I might as well get the rest of them.
They're never that nice. They don't care about that. No, yeah, the Skeletor came from Mark Wolfram Designs. It was called Biomechazoid Skeletor. It was still for the vintage line.
Okay.
I think was so they used that, and then I think it was still Dave Wolfram that designed the final New Adventure Skeletor. So you can see the process. It's more like the same person was involved in that design, so he carried over a lot of elements from those. But I think Skeletor was designed for the vintage line, while the Power Cell feature, etc., was definitely the live action show.
Makes sense. There you go. Look at that. Learning something new every day. Is there some place we can go to see that laser power prototype, or you just have it hidden away in your vaults?
No. It's it was in some ads.
Okay.
In some catalogs. I think if you can find a copy of the catalog, or there are of course scans.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look around.
Yeah, sometimes you see the same prototype without the power cell, and sometimes you see the one with the power cells too. Sometimes you see also the Skeletor prototype in the same picture. It's actually is the picture where they are both prototype, and you can tell they're just kit bashed vintage figures.
Right.
So Skeletor, they just painted stuff, put cardboard pieces on top, and it doesn't look at all like the final New Adventure Skeletor.
All right, well,
Laser Knight Skeletor.
I'll take a look for those afterwards, folks. If you're watching this, take a look at the links down below. I'll drop a link down there once I find them. So yeah, awesome tidbits, and that's the kind of stuff that Power and Honor Foundation does. They dig up all this stuff. They've got this book. If you guys can get a hold of this book, it's amazing. It's got so much in there. Amazing job, Emiliano, Josh Van Pelt. I know there's probably many more.
Thank you. Yeah, and if I can advertise a bit.
Absolutely, go for it.
We've been working on more books for years. Unfortunately, Dark Horse wasn't interested in doing more books with us, or the kind of books we wanted to do. But we would like to publish an updated version of the catalog, probably with a different title, a more professional book. That was our first attempt. But let's say whatever you see in that book, we now have more than twice than that.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, it will be a lot more comprehensive and with a lot more stuff. We have all the Mark Taylor stuff. We have all the stuff that we found in Ted Meyer's studio. Lot of new adventure things from the Dark Horse book, but organized in the Foundation way. So a lot more scientific to say that. And we're also working, we have other projects, but we're also working on this toy guide, which is going to be a very different product from the Dark Horse guide. I wouldn't say they are in competition because we definitely have a different audience in mind for that. The Dark Horse book is probably going to appeal to have a much broader appeal than our book. Our book is very collector focused, where we try to we only focus on the vintage line,
Okay.
and we are trying to cover all the different version of the toy line that were created in the 80s are all around the world. So not just the US release, not just the European release, but you'll see the Top Toys, Rotoplast, Leo Toys, and then all the variations.
Right.
It's
That's
humongous
a lot.
work. It's a lot. There is no way it is 100% complete.
Right.
I started to say that because I don't want people to expect that it will be the final word on variants. It won't. It's a work in progress. I've been working on that since 2011. I'm glad that I haven't published it before, because the amount of informations we found from 2011 to now, it's incredible. Let me just say, I was photographing Castle Grayskulls.
Okay. You're not trying to do like all the different paint all the paint sprays on Castle Grayskull, are you? Because that's just insane.
Impossible. Yeah, that's impossible because basically it was these factory workers spray painting, and so every single castle is different from each other. But I just found out last weekend how many releases of the US Castle Grayskull there are, plus all the other variations that are around the world. And I just found out last weekend. So now I have that information. I can't wait to share on this guide later when we'll publish it.
Can you give us a number? How?
No, that's because that's the cool thing that I found out.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
it's not. I mean, I'm not talking dozens of release, but it's more than we thought.
I would have said 2, because the only thing I can think of is that the platform where the cannon sits. I know it had one with the grooves in it and one where it was flat. So I would say 2. So I'm probably way off.
It's not. You're not way off, but it's more than 2.
More than 2. All right. Well, and it's funny you bring that up, because I just was cleaning some stuff out the other night, and I found the picture of when I got my Castle Grayskull, and me opening it, and that was in 1988. So you got to figure they were, and that's what shocked me, because of how the toy industry is now and how it is then. They were still producing Castle Grayskull in 1988. 7 years after it first released. Like, that is unheard of nowadays. Nowadays, you're lucky, especially play sets, if it lasts 6 months, and once it's out of the stores, it's gone.
It's just one run. Yeah, it's just one run. Right. Castle Grayskull was produced in 82, 83, and probably they kept producing. I don't think they actually kept it in production in 87, but they made probably 82, 83, and 84, and maybe even 85. Even if they didn't change the mold, it was still the same US release and the Italian version. Those were the 2 most common versions around the world. I don't know when the Australian one was done, but probably that was later too. So I mean that was, and the Leo Castle Grayskull was later too, because Leo was producing them later. But that now it's just one run in itself, because it's more the nature of the retailers that they want new stuff and just sell as quick as possible and bring new stuff in the stores.
Yeah, clearance it out after 2 months and call it a failure because your your movie hasn't even come out yet, your show hasn't premiered yet, and but you don't want it sitting there.
But and also the fan perception about this has changed. Like we got one wave of each line every year. For Transformers, for Masters of the Universe, for other lines. Now I see fans complaining if they don't see any new announcement every month.
Right. Yeah, no, it's completely changed the game. I mean, to talk about the modern stuff a little bit, the origin stuff, which I'm not really getting into. I picked up a Scareglow and a Skeletor so far, but I mean, the way they're releasing these is like boom, boom, boom. They did it with
Yeah,
the WWE wrestler mashups. Like they're releasing a new wave every like 2 months, it seems. Sometimes even a month in between. Um,
yeah.
which is also very different from how they'd been previously. So the toy industry is obviously still adapting to everything.
Yeah. I'm surprised too. It's a weird model. This one, I mean, not even the bigger toy lines like Transformers is what comes to mind right now as comparable. Well, not comparable because as much as most people won't like it, Transformers is much bigger right now than Masters
Oh,
of the.
absolutely.
It wasn't in the 80s, but I mean it stayed there, and now it's much bigger. But they still have certain releases in at certain times of the years. Of course, the figures come out at different times, but not as fast and as in bigger waves like Origins right now. I guess the nature of the of Origins being modular and having a lot of reused parts between the figures helps with that a lot.
Oh, true, true. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. And yeah, so let's shift gears for a minute here,
Sure.
because we want to talk about your work on MV Creations. I mean, this was to those of us fans, this was definitely your child. Basically, it seemed to us. I mean, you did the majority of the artwork from what I can remember. And what was it like? What was it like working for MV Creation? What was it like putting out a monthly comic? And how did you get all that toy Four Horsemen detail into every panel? That must have taken you forever.
Well, that's the reason why I'm not doing comic anymore. Where do I start? Well, it wasn't work. I never worked for a big publisher, so I don't have the experience to make a comparison. But I know that I was working basically for not family owned, but just one guy owning the company.
Yeah, it was a small
So
business.
it was Val. Yeah, it was just his company. So it was really a one-to-one relationship on the comic, and of course there was a lot of trust put in me as this unknown newcomer, which I haven't worked professionally before that. So I mean, of course, I'm very grateful that Val was so. Uh,
Trusting?
ready to trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, but I mean, the relationship was very, I wouldn't say loose, but very relaxed because it was just me and him. He sent me the script and I would do the pages. He gave me corrections and I would fix it. We had Marco Failla that helped us. At the beginning, I was the inker. And then Marco left because he wanted to pursue his own career. Now Marco is a big artist working for DC and Marvel. So we switched to just penciling, which added a bit to the stress because the final art had to be my pencils, not the inked one. So they had to look much better. And then it was my obsession for the toys that made me draw them that way.
Right.
I wanted them to be exactly like the toy. Well, there was also another reason. Before doing the He-Man comics, I was using a completely different style, and I was using a lot of harsh shadows and blacks. And in part because Val didn't like that, and in part because what Mattel was putting out in terms of art, which was done by Ruben Martinez, which is now one of the designer of Origins.
Yes.
The mini comics are drawn by Ruben. That art was more manga-ish,
Yeah.
more anime oriented, more Joe Madureira than actually real manga. Madureira was big at that time, and I
Absolutely.
kind of saw that the Four Horsemen were going for that exaggerated look with a lot of details. And without being able to use blacks, I had to draw everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't cover anything in shadow. So I it was a lot of work. Yes, it was a lot of work, and I was obsessed with getting the toys perfectly right. I was always going to, I had these photos of the prototype and studied them. And when I got the figure, I had the figures on my desk all the time, picking them up and noticing, oh look, this thing on Skeletor knee is actually a piece of skull he
Yeah.
has.
Yeah, and I noticed
So
you even have like on Skeletor's shin guards, you got the little crack that goes in the one jewel. Like, I mean,
yeah,
that is
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it was a school, so okay, so I have to draw it like a piece of a school. It's not a jewel, and and, and then at one point Eric Tradeaway told me, "Oh, you're putting more details than we have in our talks." Yeah, I know. And so by the end of it, I was so tired,
yeah.
so tired. And yeah, at one point when I realized doing toys was much more satisfying and paid much better, I said, "No more comics for me."
No. And I think you came to realize why Filmation and even Mike Young, they always simplified all the designs, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, absolutely, yes. Well, I mean, that's not even like doing a comic book where you have to draw it on like 5 times
Mm-mm.
on 20 pages. The same guy, maybe. That is a lot of animators that have to draw a character thousands of times
Yeah.
for of each episode. So of course,
I still remember a photo from you back during your 2000 X days. Um, I think it was for the finale for the volume 1 comic where you had a bunch of blaster hawks like hung up around your room so that you could get that final
yeah.
assault on Snake Mountain.
Yeah, well, of course, I only had one, but I took photograph in different poses and points of view,
That
and I
was it.
put them
Yeah.
in Photoshop, yeah, in my room. So and I traced all those, yeah, the old way of doing things. You know, taking the photos, uh, putting them together in Photoshop, printing it, going to the light box, and tracing all the stuff. I
Nice.
don't do that anymore.
And now he just designs the toys. So
Yes.
so on this we're going to talk for a minute here for what you remember of the Power of Fear, because Sean and I just reviewed this in our last episode. First off, both you and Enza Fontana are credited for the art. How did that
Yes.
work with dual artists on a book? Did you guys do certain pages? Did you switch back and
Yeah.
forth, or
We just split the book in two.
okay?
Uh, like I will take on an average 11 pages, and ends I will take another 11,
Mm,
or maybe sometimes I did a bit more. And the same was with this one, with Power of Fear. We did probably, I don't remember how many pages it is, but we did half and half.
okay, and so
Yeah. So but I mean, we were working together in the same studio, so we were constantly looking at what the other was doing and try to make the style consistent as much as we could.
that's
Sometimes I was doing layout for Air, and she was doing layout for me. So
gotcha. That's what I was gonna say. Reading through the book, yeah, I mean, it transitions. I've read books where it's like, okay, here's where the other artist took over, but with this book, it's like it's
it's hard to say.
seamless. So that's amazing work to both of you.
Well, that's good. Also, the credits for to Ansa that adapted so well too.
Absolutely. So the character Scareglow, especially. Tell us what you can remember about making the decision to include Scareglow. Was that something that just came to you in the script? And who actually got to design Scareglow? Was that you? Did you work with any of the Four Horsemen, maybe, or anything you can remember about that part?
Mhm. Well, okay. As it was anticipated to you
Yeah.
before we recorded, there wasn't any big plans behind this. I mean, Val wanted to do this charity comic because that
Right.
was what it was. It was a charity comic, and we were always trying to give something to the fans, do something that fans would enjoy. And this was an Halloween special, and
Yes.
so it kind of makes sense to use Scarglow, which is a very Halloweenish character by himself, a glowing skeleton. So perfect for that purpose. The issue was that it hasn't been designed for the cartoon,
Right.
and it was one of the few that Eric Treadaway didn't sketch for the toy line. He had
Right.
a few more designed for like Spycore and Jitsu that some of those eventually became the Netcast action.
Right.
But he hadn't done Scarglow. I remember one of the other guys that helped Eric, George Djokovic, which sculpted many of the classics figures and some of the 2002 figures too. He had some designs for Scarglow, but I got to see them only much later on.
Right.
One of the idea was to have their ideas was to have an actual skeleton enclosed in clear plastic,
Okay.
which is actually a nightmare to produce. It's very difficult. I remember the somebody mentioned that again, maybe for Mondo, but I really have no idea how to do that. Like, there is a lot of engineering involved in doing something like that.
Right.
But anyway, so at that time there was nothing about him. So of course I sketched it. And that was the time when I was starting, to try to do my own designs. My goal there was to be like Eric, to make designs that could be part of what the Four Horsemen were doing. I wasn't trying to do my own thing. I was trying to do, I want to do a design that looks like it was done by the Four Horsemen. Not as an homage or to steal from them, just
Right.
it's part of the design to create something that fits exactly a certain aesthetic. So I did Scarglow, I did a few others, just the others for fun, but this was for the purpose of this book. So Val called me, and it didn't call me. I was in his studio in Lynchburg,
Yep.
in Virginia, and he told me about that. I think that the funnier part about this that I can tell you, I'm sure you remember this fondly too. It was, he told me, I want to do this Halloween special. I want to have Scarglow in this, but I can't. I have to find a good title for this.
Right.
I don't know. We need to have a powerful title. What that could be? It should sound like something like The Power of Fear. And I said, yeah, you have it.
You got it.
And so everybody in the room look at it and said, oh yeah, that's true, that's right. So
No, it is. It's
really
a great
like that.
title.
Yeah, it was just like, let's do something like this. Yes, that's the one.
Right. Now, now I also seem to recall from the time that after this came out, you guys got into a little bit of trouble for using Scareglow. And I found that interesting, especially reading through the credits here as we were getting ready to review it, and I was reacquainting myself with the story, because you have Ian Richter on here as an editor, and in the back here there's a letter from the CEO of Dream Halloween, and he's also he's founder and board chair of Dream Halloween, and he was a Mattel CEO, Joe Christina. So why did you guys get into trouble for using this guy when these two Mattel guys were a part of this whole thing? If that
I'd
makes
like
sense.
to know. I'd like to know. I'd still like to know.
Okay.
Well, Ian being listed there doesn't necessarily means that you actually have read it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, not because we were hiding it or we were
Right.
going behind their back. I'm talking purely by schedule and timeline. We submitted the comic for approval,
Right.
and there was no way to for many of the issues there were no way to come out in time according to schedule if we had to wait for the full approval.
Yeah, I
They were
remember that.
just slow. Yeah, it was just impossible.
Okay.
So we did everything accordingly. Of course, Dream Alwan was aware of the entire thing, and that came out. There was always, it's everything is all history. So
Okay.
I don't have any bad feeling about it anymore. But there was always somebody that didn't like what we were doing.
Okay.
It was Scott during the classics, and it was Ian during that time. And it's kind of understandable. Ian was the producer of the show,
Right.
and which basically it means that Ian was the showrunner and it was the one calling the shots and writing the story.
Right.
So it was his story. Like right now, almost everything is Rob Veidt
Right.
at Mattel. I mean, even the DC comic, it's whatever name you see as the writer, and the comic is Rob Veidt calling the shots and deciding what the storyline is. At that time, it was Ian.
Okay.
And Ian had his plans for the show, etc. So anybody that came in and wanted to do their own thing, well, let's say Ian didn't like that very much. Even if at that point when we did Power of Fear, I think the show was already over.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we knew that it was going to be over. Even if it hadn't hired, when it hired, we already knew that there was going to be no more shows.
Right. I think season 2 was done, but it hadn't all aired yet. I think that's where.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was no real reason to complain about that. I mean,
Right.
if anything, we were trying to move ahead the story, but Mattel just simply had no plan and just wanted to phase out everything.
Right.
So, and I still don't know how exactly everything worked, how exactly they started saying stuff. No, you cannot use any character in the story. You cannot do this, you cannot do that. And we had to give up because it was just impossible to do anything with it.
Right.
It's not like they said just stop. They just say no. You at one point they say you can only use 12 characters.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, how can you tell a story as large with only 12 characters? We cannot go in any new town. We cannot find any new artifacts. Nothing.
Right.
So the entire volume 3 was written around that. Like, okay, so we cannot, because everything was about trademarked names. So we cannot name anything. We won't name anything. I'll write a story, but at that point it was me creating the plots. I'll write a story where we show a lot of stuff. And we show that there is this big plan, but nobody will ever know what it is.
Right. No, that was. I remember the tidbits of your scrapped volume 3, and it sounded amazing. And the volume 3 we did get was still awesome. You guys did amazing work working within the limits, but yeah, it was. You guys could have done so much more.
You know what? One interesting thing about volume 3 though was that I think just as the story arc, the writing of that specific story arc, I think it was much better than the story we had planned.
Oh, really?
Now I don't even remember a lot of the just those 6 episodes we had planned, 6 issue we had plans, but it was just an ongoing story. It wasn't really focused. It didn't have a complete story arc.
Right.
While we had to create this story that had some conclusion on issue 6, And I think it was better because it was more focused. We had to find a conclusion that makes sense within the cartoon. And I remember even when the script uh, came in, because we had this other girl writing the actual script on my plot, came in, and I was really unhappy. And I called Val and said, "Look, this last issue is just a big fight. There's no payoff. Nothing happens here. We have to find something else." So we rewrote it, and we changed it, and we came up with this idea that He-Man didn't have the power to open the sword and defeat Serpus at the end. So we wrote that in that last issue. So it made sense, and we had an actual hand, something that paid off in the story arc. That's why I think it's more solid than the story we had in mind.
And I will say that was my favorite part of that. That whole volume 3 is amazing. Don't get me wrong; it's absolutely amazing. And I love that you actually gave a reason for He-Man's sword all of a sudden being able to do this. Whereas in the actual cartoon episode, spoiler alerts if you guys haven't, read or watched anything in the past, 17 years now. Oh my god. But yeah, that you guys actually made a reason why He-Man can all of a sudden do this. I just thought that was phenomenal because that's how my mind works. And even in Awaken the Serpent, I'm sitting here going like, how, why, it was an awesome episode, but why, how, and why haven't we done this the whole time? Why hasn't he done this every big bad he's come up against? Why hasn't he used this? And you guys gave a reason for it in universe. And I do appreciate
of course
that.
This is nothing bad about the show. Of course, we think as an adult about this stuff.
Right.
For a kid, the show perfectly made sense. They didn't need any other explanation. He-Man had this new power. That's it.
Sure.
It worked. But yeah, as adults, we try to find better explanation for stuff.
Absolutely. Real quick, couple more questions we had come up with Scareglow. So in so obviously there's a big point of contention still to this day, even after attempts to clarify whether Scareglow serves Skeletor or whether Scareglow is Skeletor. And one of the things I noticed reading through here is in this issue, Scareglow and Skeletor both had that added effect around their word bubbles, that red trim. Was this kind of a little nod like, hey, maybe there's a bigger connection between them? Or was it just, well, they're both skeleton characters and that's like an echo?
I mean, if Val had something in mind or he wanted to play on that and instructed the letter at that time, I can't remember, or maybe I never knew. But as far as I know, no, there was no plan at all. I still think that this whole confusion comes just for the grammar.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it comes from. So for you personally, is Scareglow just a ghost or is he Skeletor's ghost?
No, it's just a ghost.
Just a ghost. Okay.
Yeah, it's something that he is summoned from another dimension.
Yep. All right, and I completely agree with you, but I know there are still those out there that debate it.
I mean, it's another story. It could even be an interesting what if story if we found out that it is like an deceased Skeletor from the future that comes back as our Scareglow. Yeah, but I'm very picky with the lore of the character, so that's why I don't really like that.
Yeah, and I don't like tying things in too tight because to me you get to a point where it's like, okay, now everybody's related, and I don't like that. So, there
is already enough with Keldor and Adora, etc.
Yes, exactly. One of the really cool things I thought you guys did in this comic was when Scareglow's just there and not using his power, he's all like grayish black. And his skeleton only appears when he's using his power. Again, was that something you came up with, or was that on the colorist?
Well, we instructed the colorist for sure to make that. Well, I think it was Val coloring that. No, no,
No,
it
it
was
was uh
Freddy.
Kevin Senft and John Rauch.
Oh yeah, yeah. John
Mhm.
Rauch that later worked I think on some Transformer stuff. No, I think Val instructed them, and I think I remember talking about having the effect changing in different pages, but yeah, it wasn't. It was something that we planned.
Yeah, that was a very cool addition to it. And I guess the last big question that came up for us when we were reading it is, it was interesting to see in your guys' comic that Scareglow's power worked more like a Mad Hatter toxin, where they're actually like living through, Tila, Man Arms, He Man, they're living through a fear rather than just
Yeah,
being paralyzed in fright.
yeah.
Um, but can Scareglow see uh, these hallucinations?
I don't think I thought about that
Okay.
at that time. That's actually an interesting question because
Yeah, we were
uh,
debating it because, especially with He Man, I mean, that opens up a whole can of worms
yes,
if he's
exactly.
seeing
Yes,
into He Man's mind here.
yeah, exactly. That would be interesting to explore. I guess for the sake of moving the story ahead without giving him too much power is just something that he provoke in others, an effects that he has on others people's mind,
Right.
but it's not that is reading it. So it's like
Okay.
something that is projecting some power that projects on them. And I didn't want to use the word virus right now.
Oh, no. Yes.
But you know what I
Toxin.
mean.
Go with Toxin. Like the Mad Hatter. They're,
Yeah,
they're, they're experiencing it, but Scareglow can't see it. He just takes that
yeah,
opportunity to strike them down
yeah,
while they're living through it.
exactly. Yes, yes.
All right. Yeah, that's where I was hoping it would go, but I was just curious if you had a different thought on it. Because yeah, and that's exactly what it does. It either makes Scareglow a powerful villain or Scareglow an all-powerful villain.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, how do you defeat this guy then if he's learning everything about everybody?
Yes, yeah. Bit too complicated.
All right. Well, I think that's about all we had about the power of fear. Any other tidbits you want to share, or anything else you want to promote?
Uh, I wish I could have more Masters of the Earth stuff I was working on right now to talk about, but unfortunately, right now I'm working on this toy guide I told you, and I haven't done any new Mondo stuff for some time. But there is still something that they have yet to reveal.
Oh yeah.
They tease.
Oh, sorry. What I meant to ask that earlier. Which of the figures did you design off of Mondo? Because I haven't been paying as close of attention to them because I can't afford most of them.
I did Man at Arms was my first, even if it came out later. I did Merman. I did Ordak, and I did just the side for Scarglow.
Oh, the scythe. Gotcha.
The side, yeah. The
Yes,
others,
that scythe was very 2000X. Everyone was
yes,
going with it when it came out,
yeah,
and it's
yeah. Because
beautiful.
well, they actually, yeah, they showed me, that the comic. I said we will like something like that. Um, and they teased a few more,
Mm-hmm.
at least four more. But I don't know if they ever confirmed them by names. So like if you name
Yeah.
something like, oh, I saw a picture of that, you can say, oh yeah, I did that one. But I cannot say the name myself.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can't even think of what. I think they teased a Shira. I think that's about the only one that I can remember
Well, no,
off the
yeah,
top of my
that's
head.
true. They actually show my drawing on Instagram last year.
That's
Well,
right.
no, this year. Sorry, I lost. Of course,
It,
time has
it's
is
been a
gone.
very long year, so
Yeah,
it's felt
yeah,
like 2 years.
yeah. They show Shira, and yeah, that's me too. Well, I
Mhm.
did basically all of them except Ray Pains and Trapjaw.
Okay.
which is Florian Bertmer. But yeah, Shira was super excited to do Shira. It was I had to design the body because they didn't have a
Right.
female body yet, and then it was like it was around the time that Sideshow had revealed their statue.
Mhm.
So we were all, let's show Sideshow how it's done.
Absolutely. No, you're knocking it out of the park on those figures. I wish I could afford more, but it is what it is,
I know
unfortunately.
they are very expensive stuff. It's
Yeah.
a high-end collectible. Yeah, I'm happy myself that I get sample for this because
Exactly.
yeah, it would be a lot.
And go ahead and feel free to share some of the non-Masters of the Universe stuff. I mean, I know we've got a lot of fans here that are pretty much,
Uh,
dabble in a
it,
lot of stuff. So, what are you working on
yeah,
right now for Hasbro that you can talk about?
yeah. I never can talk about what I'm. I mean, of course,
Oh,
I'm working nonstop on Transformers.
yep.
Um, I work, and since my old boss, John Warden, moved after I think 10 years or 11 years on Transformers, it was moved to Power Rangers.
Yeah.
I started working on Power Rangers. Now I'm too old for Power Rangers, meaning that I never actually
Yeah.
watched the show or became a fan of the show. But John immediately involved me in Power Rangers, and I think it was last Friday they did a live show.
Yeah, they did something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was Jordan, the other designer working on the line, and John, and they were all excited, and they show some of the new Megazords from the new Dino Fury
Yeah.
toy line, and they showed some of the Zords I designed. Of course, when I say this, there is one thing that started to bother me in the last few years, because when I say I designed it, it sounds like I came up with the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not fair to say,
Okay.
because I didn't. When we talk about uh, the Power Ranger Zords for
Mm-hmm.
the new show, of course I didn't design them. There was Toei that created the show and the design of these guys and the Zords and the costumes, etc. When I say I designed the figure, it means that I adapted those designs for that specific toy,
Right.
but I didn't map with the toy. So I'd like there was a better term to make the distinction, so the credit would go to where is due. So I helped design this specific toy,
Right.
but of course didn't come up with the characters or anything like that. But it was fun. It was something different. I got to study a lot of the old stuff and the new stuff. It was stuff that even if I know a lot of Japanese toys,
Mm-hmm.
there are areas that we completely ignore.
Right.
Like if I ask most of the US people about the Brave line, they have no idea what it is.
No idea.
And it's a line, it's a series of show and toys
Uh-huh.
that has been going on for decades, and they do crazy stuff. Like if you watch one of these toy review videos on YouTube where you have the entire, like they review 10 years of Brave
Mm-hmm.
robots, you you are amazed, because you have these vehicles that forms a robots, and then there is another vehicles that transform it into another robots, but also open apps and put it and goes on top of the first robot and make it a bigger robot, and they go on and on, and you get larger and larger robots.
So
And the
is
more
this oh, sorry. Is this based on properties, or is it like it's original
it's
stuff?
yeah, it's a property called Brave.
Okay, so it is its own property.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's kind of like Power Rangers, where every year they reinvent the line with
Right.
new robots, like Gao Geiger, Neon Genesis Gao Geiger, which
Yes.
is a better known. Yeah, that's part of the Brave
Oh, okay.
series.
I'll have to check those out.
But yeah, but there is crazy stuff even in the Super Sentai
Yes.
robots. There are some amazing stuff, and I wasn't aware. I got to study it for what I both book. I started watching videos, and I'm just amazed because they are just incredible toys and
Yeah.
incredible designs. So I get excited about this stuff.
I
You
like
can
it.
tell.
Now, when you say you've worked on Transformers, when you're designing that, again, obviously you're taking like the movie or the cartoon or something, and you're trying to, you've got pretty much existing. You're not creating new characters, or have you created new?
Sometimes I did.
Sometimes
Sometimes
you
I
did.
did. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you have to come up with actually how it transforms as a designer, or do you come up with like he's gonna look like this, and then it goes to another department that goes, here's how we make him change?
Yeah. No, I don't.
Okay.
That's the short answer. Longer answer is that the way it works is that Hasbro develops a basic idea of the character, and usually what I do is to come up with the visual of the character.
Okay.
And I'm told to not worry too much about the transformation. Eventually, the team at Takara Tomy in Japan will take over and figure out the transformation.
Gotcha.
And I know that whatever I draw, they will be able to do it. Of course, if you are a good designer and a good Transformers designer, you try to make their life easier by doing something that is at least possible.
Right.
You don't do something that just the halt mode and the robot mode have nothing to do with each other, or where the parts are in places that are impossible to reach.
Right. If he's got a big spoiler, it's got to be somewhere on the robot. You can't just leave that
Yeah,
off.
you kind of try to do that. You know that some parts can be hidden, and some stuff can switch around pretty freely the way that the character does. But you try to be conscious about that, and provide something that makes sense for them and they can work with. So sometimes for smaller things, I came up with some transformation myself. Sometimes I work on models that have been already developed. So you have this gray model with no details on them. It's just blocks. And I sometimes just sketch over the CAD drawings or even of the prototype photos and draw the characters on top of them. So the transformation has been figured out already.
Gotcha.
So, it changes a lot. It depends. Sometimes there is something they haven't thought about. And I said, why don't you make this transform in this way? Doesn't happen often. I don't want to take too much credit for that. But like on the Generation Skybite, the original designer had just this shark head completed on front of his chest, and say, why don't we cut the tip or the nose of the shark in a certain way so we can completely rotate it 180 degrees, and you have the gem with the symbol like the whole toy. And that they thought that was a good idea, and Takara Tomy implemented it in the toy.
Very nice. Sounds like a good partnership there. Lots of back and forth. So
that's... Yes. And I have to say, everybody at Hasbro, they are the nicest guys I can work with. They are passionate. If you watch their video, like this Power Ranger video, you watch John, and you can tell John is not just a corporate guy. He really, really get excited, and he has a lot of fun about what he does. And that passion working together with these guys, you can feel it. And they said, sometimes one of them once said, yeah, we just dork for this stuff. And it's fun.
Yeah, well, even watching you, for those of you who are listening on our audio platform and not on the YouTube video, I mean, Emiliano's face has just been lit up this entire time. I mean, you can see the love and the passion he's got. I mean, I don't talk about my work like that. I run a grocery store, so I don't talk with any sort of passion like that. It's amazing seeing you. You're talking about your 9 to 5 day job, and you are just lit up like a young boy who's finding the Transformers in the stores. That's awesome. So
Yeah, it is. I consider myself like, I mean, the job can get boring at time, of course, and can be stressful, but I know how lucky I am doing this. Absolutely. It's great. And I wouldn't change it for anything else right now.
all right. Well, I want to thank you, Emiliano. I want to thank you for coming on today. I want to thank you for all the work you've done for the fandom, all the comics, all the art that's brought joy into my life and the lives of many others. Listening to you on Roast Google Dinner back in the day. I mean, I feel like I've known you for a long time, and it's been a pleasure to sit down with you today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that please imagine that it's likewise for me to know that I've connected with so many people over the years, and when I went to and when I go to San Diego and other conventions, I met people and they know me, and it's not like I'm popular. It's just like they know me. They know me as a person, and it's fantastic, to have that kind of connection right away because of the work I did and because the way I try to communicate with people too. It's fantastic. I hope, I really hope next year we'll be able to do it again.
Absolutely, I agree. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for tuning in. I'll drop some links down below. I find that prototype. I'll drop a link to that Hasbro panel. Check out all that stuff. Buy some Transformers. Keep Emiliano, in a job. And as we always say on Legends of Grayskull, until next time.